Let's get started. The mayor of Chicago, him and this other moron mayor of New York, do they think this is like a notoriety game? Like, let's see if we could get noticed because we think we're somebody? Because to me, I'm not going to mention them by name because I won't even give them that respect because I have none for either one of them. Now, we'll talk about Chicago because it's more of a pet peeve with me with Chicago. Disastrous. Chicago will always, it's a sanctuary city and you're safe here and we won't let you down even if you're illegal immigrants and even if you have committed crimes. I mean, is this guy an idiot? Who does he think is buying this crap? Seriously. It's disgusting. It really is. How low we have regressed as a people, especially this moron. Oh boy. Listen, it, you know, I look at it this way. The old adage is there's an asshole in the woodpile. Like, I came from like hiding behind the woodpile or hiding in the woodpile. And something just ain't right. Something just don't smell right to me with this whole gig. I mean, this mayor, what's his problem? What could it be? What could it be? I have some ideas. Those are my ideas. You might not think this, but I kind of do. I mean, because really, what could it be? Let's think. Is he afraid? Is he afraid of the criminal element? Could be. Is that why he's not standing up against it? Is he afraid maybe he'll become one of those statistics? Hmm. Is he dirty? Could he be on the take a little bit, A little bit of coin on the side? Oh, that's not that far fetched. Don't go, oh my God, are you saying that the good mayor of Chicago? I'm saying it's a possibility not to be overlooked. Of course, I don't overlook it. Little bread on the side, look the other way, maybe scared, thinks he might get axed because if he has something to say, like, hey man, you got to get out. Because who's running the city? He certainly isn't. I would imagine in the inner cities, the drug lords are. Drugs and the criminal element. And the people who are seeking refuge in an inner city and preying on American youths in inner cities that don't have a fighting chance in hell. They're doomed before they even get started in life because of that type of crap that's going on and that type of, I'm not even going to say leadership because this guy couldn't lead a friggin' dog to his, dish. So I don't get it. Let's think about it for a minute. I'll give you a little analogy. And I'll bring it right to you, Chicago. In the, I guess was it the late 20s, early 30s? I'm not really sure what. Al Capone. Almost like that was a different time. Well, it was a different time. What the hell was it, man? Almost 100 years ago or whatever. Al Capone kind of ran Chicago, didn't he? He was a criminal, right? And he was corrupt. From what we understand through history, he was a murderer. And he kind of really, when you think about it, from what we see in documentaries and history and history buffs and what they brought us through movies and whatever. I mean, whatever. He kind of ran Chicago. The Syndicate. And there was a lot of murders that took place and a lot of corruption, because where there's money, there's corruption, as we know. A big thing back then that was involved was booze, alcohol, and they fought for territories. They machine gunned down guys, murders, and territorial disputes and what have you. But Capone at the time was running Chicago. I don't know if it was the inner city. It probably was, where the action was in the city, right? But until he got completely out of control and people were just getting diced up all over the joint, and they had to send out old Elliot Ness, the Untouchables. Dun, 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 dun. Elliot Ness. Well, you get the guy in tax evasion or whatever. He goes to Alcatraz, dies of whatever, venereal disease or whatever. Good for him. He was a bad dude. Anyhow, my point is this. Is what's happening now much different? I think the only difference is it's drugs. There was drugs then, but alcohol was prominent then. But I'm sure there was cocaine and heroin and all that crap then. But it was, on the down low. And alcohol, like I said, was prominent. But don't you kind of have the same problem? Who's running the inner cities now? Who do you think's running the inner cities? Well, I would imagine the criminal element is. And it's not a syndicate, the kind of thing, like leaders and stuff like Al Capone. Well, it could be in a sense, but it's probably different gangs. It's probably a multitude of bullshit individuals. But anyhow, drugs is the problem. Drugs are running the inner city because your moron mayor certainly isn't. And this is the problem we have. So again, where there's drugs like that and corruption and money, there's going to be these problems. There's going to be murders and deaths from ODs and all that. And it's a shame. And a lot of it is from criminals that seek sanctuary. Why not go to Chicago, the old inner city? You're safe there. No one will mess with you. You can hide out in the inner city. You can sell drugs. You can do whatever you want. They'll leave you alone. The mayor's cool. He's our buddy. Anyhow, these are Americans. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of criminals killing each other and everything, but there's like kids and their teens and young adults in their 20s and 30s that are those kids' parents. They're getting murdered. They're hooked up on drugs. They ain't got a chance. There's no jobs. There's no real education. They don't know any better. It's terrible. It really is. So let me ask you this question, Mr. Moron Mayor. Why wouldn't you tell, well, they're not your people in your city because you're just, man, oh boy. Why wouldn't you say to Mr. Trump, hey, you know what? And say it right in front of the citizens of Chicago for all to see. I welcome Mr. Trump, our soon-to-be president, and anyone that can help Chicago and its people and the inner city. I would love the idea that you would come in, no matter what you had to do, no matter what options you had to take, please, and help save lives and help our city. Help rid it of the criminal element. And you could start with the illegals. Now, mind you, illegals aren't the complete thing for the drug problem, I'm sure. I mean, the inner city, as it's developed, has become, full of drugs, probably bad off on its own. But illegals seek sanctuary in these particular cities. And the easiest way to do this, I mean, they're not going to, especially the criminals have jobs and be on the books. They're going to be druggies and what have you. But first of all, let me make this clear. Illegals, that's what the word means, illegal. First of all, the illegals didn't come into the country the correct way and got vetted. Illegal immigrants are illegal. That's the first thing. Now you have another little gig to go along with it. They're criminals. There's a lot of criminals. Illegal immigrants that are criminals with records. That's double indemnity, and that's just horrible in itself. Okay? Now, Trump has stated that he wants to clean up the criminal aspect. Why wouldn't, back to moronic mayor, why wouldn't he welcome that? And why wouldn't he even tell the people of Chicago, hey man, I'm doing everything I can, unless he was not doing everything he can, which he's not. And why is that? Back to, is he afraid of the criminal element? I'll bet you he is. And I'll bet you he's got protection day in and day out wherever he's at. A couple bodyguards on your dime in Chicago and everyone else's. Guaranteed. I mean, he's probably worried, but he's not that worried, right? Because he's protected, baby. He doesn't have to deal with that. Isn't that disgusting? Huh. And that's terrible. So why wouldn't he welcome that and say that to the people? Like, I'm going to tell Donald Trump whatever he has to do to get rid of the criminal element, and then tackle the idea of illegal immigrants who are not criminals, but they're still not in the country legally. We got to clean that up. Why wouldn't you do that? That I don't get. I have a couple solutions, though. Yeah, I got a couple solutions for Mr. Moronic Mayor. First of all, one solution would be no bodyguards, no protection, no nothing, and have that beautiful mayor take residence in the inner city. I don't know if this cat's got a family or not, and quite frankly, I don't care. Have him take residence up in one of the worst areas in the inner city. See how he likes that. Walking around, going to the local stores. Have him do that and see how he likes that. I bet you his ass would be swelling up in about the first 10 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Big Shot Mayor, who's trying to shovel shit to all the citizens of Chicago, because nobody's buying the shit you're shoveling, buddy. So, he could do that and take up residence. Or, why don't you have him? I think there's been 700 to 800 murders in the inner city as of this year, going into whatever, it's December. A travesty, to say the least. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of criminal element in there. Drug gangs, what have you, murdering each other, and that's horrible in itself. It really is. But I'm sure there's a lot of young kids, 10, 11, 14, whatever, and young adults that have gotten caught up in this and caught up in drugs, the world that they've been brought into, and don't have the lifestyles or the opportunities that other people are fortunate to have. They're raised into drug families, and they're poor, and hell, they couldn't help themselves if they wanted to, and that comes from change and what have you, and hopefully our president-to-be can do that. But back to my point, another option for Mr. Moronic Mayor. Why doesn't he go to those families or who have survived the 10 and 11 and 12-year-old kids that have become crack cocaine addicts or heroin addicts, and who have either OD'd or been murdered or been involved or now they're in jail or what. Why doesn't he go to those families and say, "Oh, hi, I'm Mr. Moronic Mayor of Chicago. You may not know me because I haven't done shit to help out the community, but I just wanted to let you know why your daughter, who's 15, and your son, who's 16, are in prison, juvie, and your other son, that was 10, was murdered. I want to let you know because I'm not interested in helping you, your family, not my city, but the city of Chicago." I mean, why doesn't he do that? Why doesn't he give them an explanation of why people are suffering and why that's happening to their family? Because he can't. He can only sit there and disgust me, and should be disgusting most Americans watching his rhetoric, that he's saying, "We will always be a sanctuary city. You could come to who in the shit, you moron, wants to come to Chicago? Oh, it'll be a safe zone and everything." Who would want to come to Chicago besides a criminal element that can hide there, for Christ's sake? What are you going there for? Let me go right into the inner city. Wouldn't that be great? Let's see. There's no jobs there. There's no safety whatsoever. You could get murdered, shot, killed, whatever, at any given moment. Huh. And probably the only job you can get is if you can find one of those protected, illegal, criminal immigrants that the fine mayor is protecting, telling us every day, he will protect, blah, 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 blah. And you can get a job with them, slinging some dope. I don't think there's a lot of longevity involved in that career, though, from what it looks like. Now, of course, that's a joke, but this is really no joking matter. I want to get jiggy with it and get a little funny with it, but I can't because it disgusts me so bad. And it's such a travesty, and it's such a shame. We have forgotten these are lives, man. These are people. These are Americans. These are people. Oh yeah, our parents, grandparents came here for a better way of life. Look at what's going on here, and we look at it just like it's statistics. Oh, okay, 400, 500 were killed. Oh, it's up to 700. What is it, like 8, 9,000 since Obama's been in office for 8 years? I mean, it's so crazy. And here's what happens. As people, as far as tragedy is concerned, we become hardened to it. We really do. Think about it for a good hard second. I'll give you a little analogy. If you're, say you're 50 to 75 years old. Do you remember when you used to watch TV when there was like 3, 5, and 8? There was like 3 channels. And the local news would come on at 11. You'd normally watch that. And they'd say, you might not want to see this, but, and they'd show a sheet with, it looked like maybe a body was underneath it and a little blood. They'd say, well, watch, put your kids to bed and look out. And say that was like 30 years ago. And you'd go, oh my God, this is terrible. Did you see the news last night? Oh my God, did you see the sheet over there? Looked like somebody was dead. See, that was like 30 years ago, maybe 40. I don't know. My point is, now we have become so hardened to things, and a lot of fault is movies and death and action and violence and entertainment. That's one whole thing. That's a whole nother thing. But we have become so hardened to like corruption and death. Like life became a little less of value. Isn't that a shame? And what that boils down to is morals and upbringing, and that's a whole nother thing too. But anyhow, It's a shame. My point is, and I could go off in so many directions with this. My point is, it's a travesty that young lives, white, black, Hispanic, whatever, young people are being murdered, killed, ODing from drugs at an alarming rate. And one of the places is Chicago. And if that isn't bad enough, you got a mayor that not only does he seem like he doesn't know what to do, but it seems like he doesn't care what to do. So I say this, Chicagoans, that mayor is a moron. And you need to really start asking some questions and saying, like, what the hell is going on? And demand help and demand change. Now I'm hoping that old Donald Trump skitty-doo is going to get in there and shake that up. And I'm guessing when the shit hits the fan, there's going to be one giant-sized boot up that mayor's ass that's going to lift him right out of that city, baby. Let's hope so, anyhow. So, now should I say I hope I didn't offend anybody? No, I'm not going to say that. Because I don't care. Because if I offended that cat, I didn't offend much of anybody. So think about that. And better days, man. Better days. I feel bad for you, Chicago. And all, inner cities with terrible drug problems and illegals, criminal illegals. And I hope we get that all cleaned up. That's about all I have to say about that. So, better days.